Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cesar Jaramillo. I'm the Executive Director of Project Ploughshares and the Chair of the Canadian Pugwash Group. And it gives me great pleasure to join you online. I wish I could be there with you in person. I attended the last Youth Parliamentary Nuclear Summit, and it's really, really an impressive and inspiring gathering. I've been watching with great interest since the morning, and really it is an impressive gathering, and the diversity of perspectives, the diversity of age groups, and just the enthusiasm, I think, with which people are embracing this call to act, to recognize the risks that are posed by nuclear weapons, but not just to recognize them, but to actually take matters into your hands and try to affect change. I would be remiss if I did not express a word of sincere appreciation to the organizers, to my friend Senator Marilou McFedran and her team of collaborators for organizing this. It's a major undertaking. I know a lot of work has gone into it, into making sure that we are having the opportunity today to discuss these important issues. And of course, a word of gratitude in particular to the students and the youth present in the room, and the teachers and the educators, and the fact that you are taking an interest in this issue is really encouraging for people like us who work in this field, because it gives hope that there's a bit of a passing of the torch, that there's a greater constituency with awareness about the risk of nuclear weapons, but also about the urgent need to do something about it. Really, there has to be a great recognition of the agency that each of you has and brings to the table in terms of making change possible going forward. Time is precious. I understand time is precious, and we're going to hear from some fascinating perspectives and panelists. But I just want to say that the risk is very real. That has been formulated today throughout the day. The risk of nuclear weapons use. It's not an alarmist proposition. It's not hyperbole. I mean, really, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists really recently put the doomsday clock even closer to midnight. The Ukraine crisis presents formidable risks. Real risks that nuclear weapons might actually be used under certain circumstances. But the one issue I would highlight the most is the obstinacy, the stubborn attitude of states with nuclear weapons and their allies, and their blatant disregard for their obligation to disarm. They are really obstacles on the path to nuclear abolition and nuclear disarmament. And I think it is entirely right and necessary to put their feet to the fire as best we can through every possible means of persuasion, peaceful means of persuasion, of course. But the reality of the status quo is simply unacceptable. The risk posed by nuclear weapons is something that is unsustainable, untenable. Some people have said that it's sheer dumb luck that have prevented further nuclear catastrophes in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but that luck will not hold indefinitely. And when it comes to our government, the Canadian government, I just want to say very clearly, the current position of the Canadian government is equally untenable and unacceptable. The position that Canada supports the eventual abolition of nuclear weapons, there is a clear and evident gap between that rhetoric and the reality of the policies, doctrines, actions, the positions taken by Canada at multilateral forums, its proximity to states with nuclear weapons, its membership in NATO, which time after time reaffirms the validity of nuclear weapons according to them, and the fact that it is their supreme security guarantee, the fact that Canada sits on NATO's nuclear weapons planning group, really contradict this lofty rhetoric about support for the goal of nuclear disarmament. So I think that is also something to keep in mind in terms of rectifying the position of our government on one very simple premise, that Canada is very well positioned, if the necessary political will was there, to make a positive contribution on the path to nuclear disarmament, to lead by example, and to put pressure, including on its military allies in NATO, to gradually but rapidly decrease the reliance on nuclear weapons on the way to their elimination. The panel now is a very exciting topic concerning lobbying and engagement, and in my mind, this speaks to the very basic question of how change happens. This change that we want to see, this change that each of you is working for, has certain methods and mechanisms and ways of work and methods of persuasion and targeting decision makers here and there. So I think it's an opportunity a little bit to take stock of lessons learned, take stock of best practices, what has worked in different contexts, in different campaigns. And for that, we're going to hear the perspectives of, again, a wonderful set of friends and colleagues in this panel. So we have, in no particular order or in the order that they're listed here, we have Leah Holla from IPPNW Canada, Paulina Chan from ICAN, Sarah Rohleder from RTT, Rouge Ali from RTT, and Bia Basaran from Manitoba Association for Rights and Liberties. So why don't we go in that order? And I would ask Leah, take the floor and share a little bit of your perspective in this context. Leah?
Thank you so much, Cesar. And thank you guys for having me once again. I'm happy to share a little bit about tips and tricks on talking to parliamentarians and representatives in Canada. A little bit of background. I've been doing advocacy work for the past, since about 2015, and then specifically on nuclear issues since 2018. And most recently, this year, very closely with Paulina in efforts to get Canada to the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. So I'm just going to give tips in 3 categories: before the meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting. So step 1 is just asking, your parliamentarian to care, asking them for action, and asking them for a conversation with you. So in order to craft this ask, you got to do a little bit of reading beforehand, a little research, and find both evidence on the subject matter, but also in order to tailor your approach. What committees are they on? What background? What do they care about? And how can you connect the issues you want to talk about to the work that they're doing? Step 2 is crafting your ask. Do you want to meet with them? Are you asking them to sign on to something? Are you asking them to post something on their social media? And then the next step is going into the meeting. While the research is really, really important, I think one of the most important things is building a relationship and just speaking from the heart. Show them why you care. A lot of us have the facts. A briefer can show the evidence. Nuclear weapons cause a lot of harm. But emotions is what cause people to act, what moves them. The meeting is an opportunity just to build a relationship and make a connection. Parliamentarians, politicians, decision makers, they're people too. And they're working just like you on a different path for the same goal, to protect the planet and protect health and humanity. You got to interact. We got to interact with so many today. We got to engage with many today, and a lot of them, they share your concerns, but they need to show that there's political will in order to act. So come in prepared, come in, speak from the heart, and listen. Another little tip is during the meeting, I'd suggest near the end, take a photo with them. That way, when you follow up, they'll remember who you are. They'll see your face. They'll remember the conversation. You can say, "Hi, I'm X from X. We met and spoke about this," and provide all the notes from your conversation on everything that they committed to do. Often getting that on paper, in writing, right after is really important in the follow-up. Parliamentarians are really, really busy. So I guess after the meeting, don't hesitate with following up. Be persistent, be patient, and keep reaching out. That's what democracy is about. It's their job it's your representative's job to represent what you want as their constituents. And now is the time. We're 2 weeks away from the third meeting of state parties. If there's any time, I'd say the next 14 days is it. And as leaders in your community, I really hope that you guys take everything we learn here and we bring it back home and act both in our constituency, engaging with your community and engaging with your parliamentarians, with your representatives. I'll pass it on. Those are some comments. I'll pass it on to Paulina, Sarah, or back to Cesar.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. I love your enthusiasm, and I love the now is the time message, and I fully concur, of course, and I love the practicality and concreteness of your recommendations, including the photo tip, which is quite practical. So yeah, let's hear from Paulina, please.
All right. Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything Leah has said, so I echo it all. I guess I would just add on to it with a couple extra tips that I felt were helpful. So when trying to build a bit of a strategy for reach out, it's also important to understand who are the champions of the topic that you care about. As you know already, there are a lot of parliamentarians here who have a demonstrated enthusiasm for this, but there could be a lot of others. So it is important to just do research on, for example, if any of these parliamentarians have ever talked about nuclear issues and whether they could be possible allies that maybe just haven't been focused on as much as the others that are consistently part of this movement. And it's also important to do a bit of a power analysis on whatever legislature you're thinking of. So I'm familiar with the federal context. And so, for example, what I would be looking at is, well, who occupies positions that have influence on the policy I'm trying to affect? So that would be, of course, thinking about foreign ministers top, but there are also parliamentary secretaries to the foreign minister. There are critics in every single party that are tasked with basically critiquing foreign policy. And so these are all important people to focus on as well. And I would also say that it's important to know, once you do meet with them, what are the tools at the parliamentarians' disposal. So you can also help them come up with ideas of how they can best help the cause. If they happen to be in a committee, like we were just talking earlier, try your best to find ways to incorporate either witnesses, expert witnesses, or studies within a committee that maybe you would have otherwise not looked at, nuclear dimensions to what they were studying. And it can also be a matter of asking these parliamentarians if they know other parliamentarians that could also be allies, and kind of building a coalition within a party, which can be extremely powerful. I would also say, as Leah was mentioning, a multi-pronged approach is also important, not just being at the parliament, but also considering constituency. As people have said many times, politicians, especially elected politicians, do tend to care very much about whether or not they're going to get someone's vote. So if you happen to be the constituent of a particular parliamentarian, or you know people who are, it's really advisable to also make it clear that from the kind of local level, there is a lot of care. I suppose another aspect I would say is about communicating during a meeting. We are very passionate people about the cause, and we might have our views on the issue. Not every single politician is going to share that exact view. Maybe there will be aspects that are misaligned with what you firmly believe. One thing it's a personal belief, but it's that it's best to avoid trying to argue with a politician, but more important to use the opportunity to persuade them. And it's about trying to see it from their perspective first and understanding why it would be that you diverge on certain issues, but then trying to find the common ground, because there probably always is common ground. Like at the end of the day, they are against probably getting blown up to shreds. And so it's just about trying to use that common ground to then lift off and say, well, if you agree on that and I agree on that, let's talk about what we can do with that, even if it's kind of like a difficult meeting where you don't necessarily fully agree. And I guess another last thing, and then maybe I can elaborate later, is that it's also important to give them the space to let you know what they would like to do for you. Oftentimes, they come up with even better ideas than maybe what you would go in for in terms of asks. And so they know best what their position is and what they are able to do. So asking them how they can help you oftentimes leads to great initiatives. And I feel like this has already happened within the time that we've been kind of advocating with the parliamentarians for the past few months. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, for that, Paulina. Super insightful and a very tactful, strategic, multi-pronged approach. It sounded to me, and I very much like this framing of trying to persuade rather than seeing it as being arguing with the parliamentarian. So very positive there. Sarah?
Yeah, so I wanted to take a little bit of a different approach and going more on organizations. Also, to say it's so great to see so many people from the Youth Nuclear Peace Summit in Winnipeg. That's where I got my start as well, and it's so great to see so many people continuing to be a part of it, and that the summit continues to run and grow as the years go by, even after COVID happened and everything else. And a part of that summit, as well as this summit, there's so many organizations that help both put it together as well as participate and give their insights and their support to as well. And so many of those organizations have a big role to play in advocacy across the country, both and internationally as well. And those organizations have that I was able to get through, many of which are also co-sponsoring here, from IPPNW to RTT, VOW, and a few others as well. And it's just so amazing to become a part of those. And especially when you go to those summits, there's representatives from a lot of those organizations, including here today, and just talking to them and figuring out how you can get involved with their organizations, because there's organizations that are a part of that look at nuclear peace and disarmament from so many different directions. So if you're very interested in intersectionality, if you're interested in looking at it from a climate change perspective, from a medical perspective, from a humanitarian lens or a youth lens, there's so many different perspectives that you can add, and based on that interest, there's an organization that you can reach out to and join to be a part of it as well. And that's one thing that I've always loved, joining different organizations and kind of participating with them and seeing how they look at it and what you can gain from listening to the people who are already part of that organization and part of doing that work on the issue from that perspective. So today, especially if you see someone and you're really interested in what they have to say or how you can get involved with their work, also just to learn, and when you do go to those meetings with parliamentarians and having that knowledge, it's kind of a step back for parliamentarians, I'm sure, as well, and for other people that you meet in whatever kind of context, and you come to this issue, it's a step back for them to see how knowledgeable you are about it. Not to just say that you're interested in this topic, but that you actually have the facts, the knowledge, whatever perspective or lens that is through. It's really different for them, especially if you're arguing someone who is against that issue, to come at it through a fact-based and level-headed approach as well. It feels really good afterwards as well to realize how much you've gained from that issue. And it's kind of, when you are in that situation, you realize how much you know, how confident you suddenly are about talking about these issues, and starting to form your own approaches to it as well, which is how research, if you are looking at doing any research on it through university or whatever other context as well. And you don't even have to take a program in university that looks at nuclear weapons to write and do research on it as well. Christian said earlier, I've been working on working papers for the third MSP for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which is coming up in 2 or 3 weeks, and working with students from both New York University as well as from across the world, and all of them putting their different perspectives on it, many of them coming at it from the first time. It's really cool to see how they look at these issues and what lens they're interested in pursuing it from. So even if you don't end up taking a course or a program that looks at nuclear disarmament directly, you can come at it from whatever approach, whether it's engineering or science-based or humanitarian, political science, whatever interest you have, there's a way to continue to be a part of this. I know right now many of you are high schoolers, which is so amazing. And wherever life takes you after you graduate university or whenever you graduate high school, there's a way to continue on being a part of this, whether it's in a full capacity or in a minimal capacity. And I am very lucky that a lot of the contacts that I still have from high school, mainly Avinash, who's our virtual coordinator, as well as Roj, who was also on our online component, who does a lot of the same work. I went to high school with both of them, and they were part of my delegation at the Youth Nuclear Peace Summit. And I still stay in contact with them, and we support each other through all of this work that we do. So if all your delegation is really interested in this topic, I recommend staying together and keeping in contact and supporting each other through all this work as well.
Thank you. Oh, I turned my video. Apologies for that. Thank you so much. I mean, and such a refreshing reminder of the multiplicity of lenses and perspectives that people can come at this issue from, and that they're all valid and they're all mutually complementary. But that last message as well, the sense of community and the ways in which community is built, including, through these exercises and these summits. So very, very encouraging. And last but certainly not least, Bia, we're going to hear from you on a few thoughts on this theme.
Thank you, Cesar, and thank you everyone for being here. I will be very quick. So I'm the education coordinator for MARL, Manitoba Association for Rights and Liberties, and a lot of the work we do starts with education. A lot of you, I'll just echo a lot of what a lot of people have said in this summit. For example, with just having this space for critical thought is just extremely important. So you being here and amplifying the voices of youth that you're representing, but also having, being here, creating this space for critical thought just makes us more aware of the issues, but also it protects our freedom. It protects our, our democracy. So we should continue to practice the having these conversations, having these ethical, conversations with each other. So I encourage everyone to continue doing that. And the students who prepared their presentations this morning, they were amazing. But it doesn't have to end today. It doesn't have to end here. I'll just congratulate you all on those amazing presentations. And you have done your steps in providing education and awareness for everyone. And you can continue this after the summit. What will you do with the presentations that you've made today? Could we post it online? Could you share it with your schools, with the cities? We have, I believe, 3 cities here from Manitoba, so we could bring that back to our cities. So uplifting and supporting our own voices and our youth voices is very important, and that can lead us to awareness, right? And awareness will lead us to advocacy and policy changes. So with this reinvestment to public engagement, it can have, I'll echo with what MP McPherson said. It'll, encourage our multilateral approach to this, just having everyone be aware, having your fellow constituents aware of what's happening. I'll echo what the honorable speaker has said as well. You rally up your friends, you go to your member of the Legislative Assembly or the member of Parliament, and have these meetings and be a part of those public committee hearings. You have those chances, and you have those chances that you should all take. You're all going to be voting age soon. So I'd really encourage everyone to just be, involved in that. And it's really important to also focus on the provincial level as well as the federal level. There are a lot of minings that is happening in our province that we can really target if we see who's involved. Talking to our Minister of climate action, right? We can talk to these specific ministers and see the issues. We have an open letter that we can use. We can bring it back to the provincial level.
having all those mass emails. I worked in government, so having those mass emails, they'll pay attention to you. They'll have to have a briefing note on that, and they'll have to respond in some way or another. So we have to be resilient, and you're all resilient, and you being here shows that already. And lastly, that can lead to more advocacy and policy. So I hope I made that really quick. If you have any questions, please let me know. But also, MARL, we're here. A lot of our organizations are here to support you. The Youth Nuclear Peace Summit, I just want to give context, was started by a group of youth who have now gone on to present at the UN, who've now gone on to you're all in different programs in university, but you're all still very much involved with this issue and nuclear disarmament. So if you're interested in a specific topic or in a specific intersection with this, with nuclear disarmament, let me know. We'll see what we can do with MARL. A lot of Avnash, Roj, and Sarah has supported our Ethics Cafe. Creating more spaces for these critical dialogues is very important because it shows politicians and our leaders that, all of our youth are capable of knowing what's really going on, and you're all capable of standing up and fighting for, the rights and the freedoms that we continue to protect. And that's it. Hope that was good for 5 minutes.
That was excellent. Thank you so much. And I very much appreciate the invitation that you made to doing something with the work beyond today, beyond the summit, because there's so much good thinking and so much that has gone into this, and the presentations that there's certainly something that can and must be shared, I think, with the wider public. I was told that there was a hard stop at 4:15, so I think that the timing worked out perfectly.
Perfectly.
And if that is the case, I just want to once again thanks the wonderful panelists that we had, and I think I hope everyone was taking note, because there were very, very concrete and useful pieces of recommendation in those remarks.